What we want to do here is to configure, verify inter-VLAN routing using a router on a stick, and this is Objective 3.4. As you can see here, I've got 3 VLANs, actually 20, and these are on separate switches, but we should have a trunk port running between them, and I've got VLAN 30 and VLAN 40. We can look at this one, 192.168.30.4, so if we go to one of these guys, he shouldn't be able to ping the 30.4. Ping 192.168.4, and sure enough, we're not getting anywhere. So what we want to do is to configure this router. We can wait for a timeout. This router here and router on a stick, because it appears that it is on a stick. What we're going to do is configure this port here, gig 01, as a trunk port. As you recall, we need a trunk port in order to send the information for all of the VLANs off of a port on a switch. Then we're going to go into the router itself, into a fast Ethernet port, and configure sub-interfaces, virtual interfaces, and we're going to associate those sub-interfaces with a VLAN. So, let's see, with that, let's go in here and see if we have, and I don't think that we have, a bunch of ups and downs and all that. The way that we find out if we have a trunk port is show interface trunk. And gig 02 is in fact a trunk. Mode is on. Encapsulation .1Q trunking native VLAN is VLAN 1, and as you recall, that native VLAN is the untagged VLAN. So gig 01 was my other one. So let's go into configuration mode and go to interface gig 0/1, and we'll do switch port mode trunk to make it a trunk port. Yeah, we're probably not going to be there yet because the interface is down on the other end. Trunk TRU, and sure enough, that's as I would expect, because the interface on the router itself, which is gig 00, got to be sure I get the right one, is in a down state. So let's go to enable config T and do interface gig 0/0. What I like to do is to associate, because I get confused easily, the 20 network, or the 2 here, VLAN 2 or VLAN 20 actually, VLAN 20 with the 20 network, VLAN 30 with the 30 network, VLAN 40 with the 40 network. And when I'm going into this thing, I can now go to interface gig 0/0.20, so that I will now associate the 20 VLAN with the .20 sub interface. And then I've got to do encapsulation .1Q, and then I'll use the question mark, IEEE 802.1Q 1 to 1004. Which VLAN am I associating this one with? And it's going to be 20, and then I do an IP address of whatever the default gateway is, 192.168.20.1, 255.255.255.0, and then I go to interface gig 0/0.30, encapsulation .1Q 30 IP address 192.168.30.1, 255.255.0, and then interface gig 0/0.40, encapsulation .1Q, and then we're going to associate the 40 VLAN with it. IP address 192.168.40.1, 255.250, and then let's go to interface gig 0/0, and since it is still shut down to still red here, we need to go in and give it the no shut command, and hopefully everything is up now. Say END, and we can show IP interface brief on this thing, and we have gigabit 0.20.30.40, which have addresses, and these are the ones that I use for the default gateways on my workstations, and everything appears to be up. We can now go back to whichever one it was, and I forgot, it doesn't really matter. But see, this was just a ping 20.2, and we should be able to do it. It's on the same one. Let's go see if we can do something really clever and ping like 40. Let's see if we can ping the default gateway. Good. The default gateway we can ping. Let's see if we can ping 40.2. If there is a 40.2, timed out, and here we go. We're pinging, we're working. Sometimes the ARP doesn't respond as quickly, and sometimes these simulators don't respond as quickly as they should. So really pretty fast. I know I probably talked too fast in that one. Is how to configure a router on a stick. And a couple of review things. We have these are both VLAN 20. We have a trunk port here, so they can talk to each other. This is a trunk port, which means that VLAN 20, VLAN 30, and VLAN 40 traffic can all go on this trunk port. We did sub interfaces. Interface gig 0/0.203040, and then we assigned an IP address to these things. Since they're directly connected to the router knows about it. We don't really have to use a routing protocol in order to do that. So if we're going from the 20 network to the 40 network, from this one we would go down here, up the interface, go across to the 40 network, we use a different color for it, go across the 40 network and come back down and go to the 40 device. So with that takes care of the router on a stick configuration. Next one, we'll either do RIP or, let's go ahead and do RIP next. Configure, troubleshoot RIP on these things. What could happen here? We don't have, we associated the wrong VLAN with the sub interface. We had the wrong default gateway on the sub interface. We didn't make the port going to the router a trunk port. So some of the things that could happen to you. So let's do RIP next. See you there.